Can you hear me? Awesome. What's new?
Nothing. I've been in my room. It's been really hard. I don't know if you still follow all the Jessup pages, but it's really hard to see them all having fun, and just want to be there.
That's understandable.
I know you can relate to that for sure. How are you?
Not too bad. Just came out of a meeting with a professor. So actually get to join a sign language class at Jessup. So that's really exciting.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so you still attend there just from you're just off campus.
Yeah. So it's going to be virtually.
Okay. Oh, that's exciting. I'm really happy about that. Are you attending that JC back at your...
Yes. So I'm taking 2 classes currently right now. And then in the spring, so next month, February, I will be taking 3 more classes.
Okay.
3, 4.
Good. Are you still going for your AA in sign language?
Yep. And those will be the 3 classes will be the last 2 classes I need for the AA.
So hopefully that'll all perfectly work out to where you can just graduate and then hopefully maybe go to Jessup. Maybe even just continue to do online if that's cheaper.
That is true. I'm just kind of seeing because I still want to play soccer and there's a couple other things I want to do, especially if in event the ASL program, I'm able to work more with it.
Yeah, because I'm sure within the next year people can petition to make it a major, and I know it's already in the works, right?
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing. So that's really exciting.
It is. I always think of you whenever people start doing sign, I'll go, nice to meet you. I'm like, Mario. Or I don't understand. I don't know. Oh, I don't understand. It's that I don't know.
Yeah, it's the same. It's all good. Awesome. So since we're on here now, you want to introduce yourself to the fans, audience, Zoomers?
Hello. My name is Claire, and I currently attend William Jessup University, which is in Rockland, California, and I am a digital communications major. So while I'm at school, I'm working on that, and I have an internship with the university, as well as I work at Pete's Coffee to pay for gas and all of those extra things. And really what I like to do is become a marketer or a social media manager. So really podcasting, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of that is up my alley. So especially with this podcast, this is going to be really fun because it's already in the stuff incorporated that I do already. So thank you for having me.
Definitely. So the topic we have for today, it's a little more confusing. So in a situation where you are about to get married, people would say love comes first before commitment. Though there's other cultures such as India, and in the past generations, you have kings and queens. They have arranged marriages. Surprisingly, a lot of people say that that's a better set of marriage because commitment comes first, and eventually you start falling in love once you get to know the person.
Yeah.
With that being said, what are your thoughts about it, Claire?
With that, love and marriage is already so complicated. So it's a complicated answer. I was really actually kind of thinking about it a little bit, and there needs to be a mixture of both because you can love someone but not be committed to them. And in the same token, you could be committed to someone but then end up truly not being as compatible as you thought that you may be. So I think that you should have both on your mind, because there's something so special about being able to fall in love and to have the ability to choose who you fall in love with. I think also growing up in America and American culture, we're very independent. We're all about the individual, so about our individual freedoms. And so we associate happiness with being able to freely choose and live our own lives. So I think also in that same way, since I grew up that way, I think that I want the freedom to choose who I want to love. That's just because of the culture. And in that same way, if you're not as compatible as you thought so, you can always, you may love them, but ultimately decide that they're not the one for you. And I think also being in America, this is totally going down a rabbit hole, but having so many different cultures, like, or different people of different backgrounds coming to America, it's harder when certain people are like, I need someone who's the same religion as me, who kind of has those same morals when raising a family, versus I know a lot of people in India do believe the same things. Their culture with religion and stuff like that is very similar. Obviously I don't live in India, so I don't want to say it's for sure, but having that ability in America to like really get to know people before you commit to them is really important, just because we're all so diverse here. So that's like my first layered answer.
That's it's a lot to dig into, and you were right about it too. Like that came to mind when it comes to like culture and religion. Personally, with myself, well, my mom would always make the comment that it's not terrible to date someone or even be with someone that's of a different culture. Though look at it more in the future when in the event that you have kids, whose faith are you going to follow? Whose culture and traditions will that child follow? So it's more on top of that, being with each other and getting to know each other. It's what are our future generations going to believe. Not to mention too that in America, like how you mentioned, we're just so diverse, and we just pretty much at this point we kind of create our own culture. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. And each generation has a different culture within itself too. Like with the age ranges, like Gen Z compared to like baby boomers, it's so diverse.
Honestly, with the technology, that's the biggest thing that pops in our head. Well, my head, that boomers and our generation.
Even honestly, the way that boomers and Gen Z go about dating and marrying and love is so different. My grandma, she married my grandpa 3 months after meeting him. So like they were dating, engaged, and got married within a 3-month period, and she was 19, and then she ended up having my uncle when she was 20 to turning 21. And like obviously I'm 20 turning 21, and that's kind of wild for me to think that she was already in that stage of her life. But a lot of people back then, that was normal for people to meet and get married pretty quickly. Versus now, people are either getting, depending on the culture, Christian culture, gets married pretty quickly, still in that same range, or people stay in relationships for years. So like 5 years, people will be together until they get married. So
that is true too. That is true, and I know with Christian and I want to say Catholic culture too, that it's not advised to be with your significant other in the same house until you're married, or at least you're on the verge of being married. And yeah. I know personally for me, I understand where that's going, because there's temptation. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. Though at the same time, being with your significant other or future significant other, you learn everything. Now it's not most of the day you're hanging out, it's 24/7. And obviously when the years go by, you get to know a person much more. So I feel like it's that commitment, though at the same time, you pick and choose.
That's so interesting. That's actually perfect, because I was just sifting through all of that, and that I personally like, because I'm a Christian, if anybody on there is curious, that is definitely my worldview. And so I think that by living with someone before marriage, you are giving them that step that is only for if you guys are married. You're not committed to them 100% yet, so you're giving them privileges of like a wife or a husband. So like if I were to go and live with my boyfriend, I'm giving him wife privileges, and then he's giving me husband privileges, even though we haven't committed to marriage yet. However, I think that goes, we also have talked about that we think it's important to commit and get married before living together, because you do see someone on another level when you live with them. Yet, and normally when they're more comfortable, a lot of their flaws kind of start to come out. That's true with everyone. We definitely have shown our worst selves to our families because we live with them and we know that they're not going to leave us. There's that commitment level that we know our families will always love us. And in that same way, your husband or your wife shouldn't leave you just because it gets hard or they're seeing the worst sides of you. Like, they should be there at your worst and they should be there at your best. And so that level of commitment is really important. And so then on that same way, if you are with them before you get married and you're like, dang, I noticed, I didn't realize that they like had anger problems or that they were so messy or stuff like that, I'm going to leave, then that level of commitment like isn't there. And so they feel like more comfortable leaving then. So I think that goes to, do you love someone enough to commit to them with their flaws? And I think that also is a level of love. Do you really love them? Because if you loved them, you'd stick with them through thick and thin, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's that one. It's not even saying, it's usually in a marriage, you see till death do you part, and it's obviously the stuff before it. It's sickness and health, and better and worse. There's a saying about it that you don't grow. It's like a muscle that when you're working out, you don't gain muscle just by looking at it. You gain it by working at it for that strain, that pain. And then, of course, that rest. The resting part is actually where we build a resistance or a tolerance. So if, like how you mentioned, someone who has anger issues, there's so many different classes. There's different ways to get over, well, not to get over, though, to support your partner. And supporting is a big key in relationships.
Yeah. Regardless if you commit or love, really, essentially, you love someone to the point that you would do anything for them, to make them happy. Something that I talk about with my boyfriend a lot is that in the Bible, it talks about the man laying down his life for his wife. But in the same token, even a wife should lay herself down for her husband in that same way of just wanting to serve, having a giving heart, and doing everything that you can for the other and putting yourself below. Because it's good to take care of yourself, but in the same way with like following Jesus, he would make sure everyone else's needs were met before his. And in that same way, that level of compassion for others is really important, and that should translate into love and into a relationship. You should have that desire to say, I know I may be struggling right now, but I really know that they need me, so I want to be there to support them, or we can support each other. It's all about like building off of each other. Or if you guys are both having a hard time, that's okay to be like, hey, we're both having a rough time, let's be here for each other. So there's so many layers to love to unpack.
Communication is key, and definitely love is just a funny thing. Something also popped up too when it comes to just the word love. Unfortunately, in America, well, the English language, we just have love. Though in Spanish, you have, the only thing that comes to mind is amor. Though there's other ways to describe love. Like you have that friendship love, you have a lustful love, you have a family love. There's different ways to describe love. And we tend to forget that there's different types of love, like family and friend love. Like I love all you guys, though I don't see us being in a relationship. It feels weird.
Yeah.
Though also going kind of diverting from that. In the Bible verse, I was trying to find the verse. Friend Tyler mentioned that we're looking over our Bible verses, and he mentioned that it talks about that wives are the church, and we as husbands, we need to love our wife as God loved the church. We need to protect them. We need to lay our lives down for a significant other. And wives, they're the ones that you can say they pretty much run the house. They take care of, they order different things. Probably butchered that, but
definitely it's that verse. It's Ephesians 5, or it's in Ephesians 5:33. I think it starts like 5:23 to 33, and a lot of things in there a lot of women like to overlook. This is definitely a hot topic because a lot of women out there are very independent. They're we have our opinions. We're very strong in them. We think that a lot of feminists are saying that we should be as equal, if not have the same opportunities as men. And so a lot of women don't like to hear that in the Bible it says, like, wives submit to your husbands, or wives respect your husbands. However, it's so important that even in our culture of feminism and standing up for the woman, and the woman is just as equal to the man, and a lot of times you even hear like, oh yeah, she wears the pants in the relationship and stuff like that all the time in American culture. But when we look at what Paul wrote, it's so important that a woman respects and submits to her husband, because naturally, if her husband is laying down his life and loving her the way that Jesus loves us, then naturally that submission and that respect for him is going to be a desire. She's going to desire to want to respect him and to listen to him, because she knows that he's leading her in the right direction, and she like trusts in his leadership. And there is beauty in submission. I think sometimes people think submission or like listening to other people or not having the like first say or the last word is a bad thing, and it really isn't. There's beauty in letting other people lead.
Learn a lot from being silent. That's what a lot of people would say. And it goes into this being submissive, that letting the other person win, or at least letting them get the last word, because why have an argument and crack that relationship where just staying silent makes everything go by smoother.
It's definitely a give and take. It's important that when you love someone, that it shouldn't naturally, in I guess a perfect relationship, if a man is loving a woman the way that Jesus loves us as well, he's going to also want to have a form of submission and listen to her and what she has to say, and take her opinions and ideas and thoughts into consideration, and also follow that as well. There's always a give and take. It shouldn't just be this authoritative type of relationship. That's really unhealthy. Because something that the analogy I always like to use is when God created Eve, she took Adam's rib, and so she's made out of his side, and so she stands next to him. So that same way, they have different roles in a marriage, yes, but they're both equal in the eyes of God, and they should be equal when they also are in a relationship with each other. One should never say, oh, well, I have this role, so therefore I'm superior. Because also someone says that, like, the ear is just as important as the eye, as just important as the mouth, as just important as the elbow. And in that same way, if someone has a lesser, quote unquote, of a role, doesn't mean that they're any less significant.
That is true. That we pick up where our partner lacks. Where someone who's really great at communicating, they are able to speak up for both of them, while the other person is great at listening. So it's that, going back to, you pick up where your partner lacks. There's also popped in my head that, what comes to mind when you think of people who have opposite personalities? So like someone who's very athletic versus someone who's very nerdy and non-athletic.
Ooh, that's a great question. Depending, opposites definitely do attract. And so I don't think that it's impossible to have two people who have very stark different backgrounds come together. It's all about what the person desires. So if the person that's athletic desires to go and work out with their partner, and to have that sense of, let's go on adventures, let's go hiking, like more active, if they want that active relationship and that lifestyle, then it probably wouldn't line up with someone as much who would rather like have a night in, or maybe yes, work out, but maybe not with their partner, or stuff like that. Like there may be more compromise that needs to happen, because when you are opposite, there is a lot of compromise, and that's really what relationships are all about, because there's two different people coming from two different families like coming together, even before marriage. Like, it was super funny because this is off topic. But one time, my boyfriend was helping me wash some dishes, and I was washing them, and I just put them off on a towel. And my family just lets our dishes sit and dry. And we let them air dry first before we put them away. But then my boyfriend was like, hey, where's your towels? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it's right there. And he was like, no, we dry our dishes and put them away because then they're not going to get put away.
That's true.
You see little things.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. So, and that's another thing about before you commit to them, when you see these little things, are these little things that are easy to get over or easy to give, or are they bigger things that are harder to give with? And so being able to, you still grow to love someone, but you choose to grow to love them before committing, instead of committing and then growing to love them, if that makes sense. Because you choose the person, but then eventually you fall into love with them. Yeah.
That is true. Studies have shown too that usually we probably got it wrong, like the term wrong, though a relationship doesn't really start until 6 months after. That's when those love shades come off and you start realizing the flaws, or you start realizing, is this someone I want to invest my time with for the rest of my life or for the future?
Yeah. That's really interesting that you say that 6 month mark too, because when I think about Christians, and especially going to a Christian university, Christians always like ring before spring or stuff like that. They'll always like use that commentary. And I think that also goes to, if you choose or you say, I want to marry someone, or even some people who do propose before that 6 month mark, they are showing that commitment over love in that way. They may like be like infatuated, but they're like, I want to stick with this person. And so that level of commitment is coming before that level of love that is actually developed yet. Because I think sometimes the strongest love develops after that 6 month mark, and you realize like, I do want to spend the rest of my life with them regardless, and I can, and I'm willing to compromise and navigate life with them. And that's when like that like solid love like actually hits, that regardless of anything that happens, I will just choose to love you.
That's true. You mentioned a good word, choose to love. Robert Steinberg, I believe that's his name. He founded a triangle of love. Not sure what it is, but basically there's three things that form a relationship. It's passion, commitment, and emotional intimacy. And he says that there's 7 different types of loves according to Psychago. That's the source I found. You have different forms. So you have empty love, relationship, companionship, a friendship love, and then there's a few other ones too, to name off. And it's funny that each of them are different, and it goes to our personalities. For someone who's very laid back and relaxed, they probably are observant. They want to get to know the person before they commit. Where other people who are very outgoing, very exciting, sociable, you can say, they probably, hey, let's see where this goes. And it's less commitment and more passion, more emotion.
I definitely agree that personalities, I think, play a huge factor into how fast or slow to take a relationship. And one of the words that I loved that you said and that stuck out to me the most was emotional intimacy. Because in America, a lot of people think that like being intimate before marriage is okay, and everyone really does that. That's pop culture. But from a Christian perspective, a lot of Christians try to wait until marriage. People hear that all the time. Oh, I'm waiting until marriage. I'm saving myself for marriage. And when you wait for marriage, that emotional intimacy feels so much stronger and is so important, because like when you're cuddling with someone, or when someone's there for you if you're going through a hard time, and you guys have that connection that grows deeper than just like a physical level. Because I think a lot of people get infatuation mixed up with love when they do come together before marriage. And that, I think, is one of the keys for Christians, is that you want to build that emotional intimacy and that emotional like connection and relationship with someone before you commit to them and give all of yourself to someone. Doesn't mean that you can't like be physically close. That's like super healthy. You're supposed to be physically close with them, but not go to the point of giving yourself to them. So that is something important in especially a Christian relationship. In every relationship, there should be a level of emotional intimacy. And I think that even to me is one of the biggest factors in saying that, like, I love my boyfriend, and that's because we grew that emotional intimacy and we're still continuing to grow it. And I think that is a key factor in love, is feeling like I know that they're there for me regardless of what happens, and I know I can go to them for anything. Like that safe space. If you create a safe space when like you do have that emotional intimacy with someone and you want your partner to be your safe space. Like, I don't think anyone doesn't want to come home and be afraid or feel like they can't even just like vent to them. Like, if you feel like you can't like get anything off of your chest or talk to them about anything, then I don't think you're in the right relationship.
It's huge that people who fear being at their worst, being at the lowest, or even are ashamed to look not like to just wear regular clothes in front of their significant other, that should be a flag that there's some work. If we're not comfortable being just ourselves around our significant other, then what are we doing, really?
That is a huge factor, and I think that when you said red flag, that is something that everyone should look for, because you should be vulnerable. Vulnerability is huge. I think we should just write vulnerability. Like, if you want to love someone, you need to be vulnerable. And if you don't want to be vulnerable in all ways, then you can't reach that level of love to want to marry them. I personally believe. I mean, someone can be committed to them and someone can marry them, but unlocking that level of truly loving someone won't be reached if you don't let them see all sides of you, because then they're just loving a part of you, not all of you.
That is true. There's a Bible verse that you reminded me of. It's a little different, though. If you go down to the core, it's pretty similar. I want to say his name is Nicodemus. I could be wrong. It was a wise king. It was a wise king who followed the rules, followed everything to a T when it came to following Jesus. When he asked, "What else do I need to do?" Jesus said, "All your belongings, give it away." So why is this brought up? Mainly because we need to be ourselves 100%. We are not able to give half of ourselves or a little bit of ourselves to our significant other. We need to give everything. Obviously not all at once, because it's not going to work. Though in time, just being fully yourself and eventually being completely 100% with your significant other, it will be extremely beneficial.
Totally. And from a Christian perspective, we give everything. We give all of our struggles, our burdens, our flaws to Jesus, because he was the only perfect person who ever lived, and because he was fully God and fully human. And in that same token, we are vulnerable with him, and we realize where we fall and how we can't do it alone. And for me, if you don't have that open vulnerability in relationship with Christ, you can't necessarily reach that with a person, because we're flawed. We are flawed people, and we can't fix each other. Jesus is the only one that can fix us. And so if you can't open up to the Father, who loves you more than anybody will ever love you here on earth, like his perfect love, like he died so you could be eternally saved. Like, I think this is on a tangent, but sometimes it gets hard, because when you're in a relationship and you love someone, they're physically with you. Versus, like, because of the fall, we were separated from God. And so we actively have to pursue that God's presence, and to make sure we're inviting his presence in. And so when we have our significant other with us all of the time, sometimes that like time we spend with God gets pushed back because you're wanting to, like, you're thinking about them, you're hanging out with them, or like being with them, going on dates with them. And so sometimes that relationship kind of like teeters. There is a verse that Paul talks about in, I believe it's 1 Corinthians, and he says that if you can, it's better to stay unmarried, because once you marry, then your priorities are on earth because you want to satisfy your wife or your husband, versus when you're single, you're actively pursuing and want to satisfy God. And so once that person comes in, there's a different level. Your priorities are split between like God and then someone here on earth. And it's so important that we carve out that time to still develop our relationship with God, because we can't pour into other people and we can't love our significant other unless we go to the source of love. If we're not going to the source, then we're not going to be able to like show that love. It's going to be a twisted type of love. It'll be a worldly love.
That's huge. And you're right about that too. When it comes to like relationship being a partnership, it requires two people. Then when you're single, you're by yourself. And as a Christian and religious individuals, our goal is to spread the word and make disciples of all nations. We're only one person. We can only reach out as many as we can. Whereas if we're with a partnership, first we need to develop ourselves. Then when we meet our significant other, we develop each other up. From there, we're able to spread out to more people. Mario Arizon mentioned it's quicker to get there by yourself, though it might be short term. When you're with a team, it may take longer. It may take a little while, though it's long term.
I think being the term that popped into my head when you said that was equally yoked. And Christians have definitely heard this term, non-Christians possibly, but essentially you want someone who is going to be on the same page as you, or be at that same level in your relationship with Christ, or level of life that you're at. Because if it's like you said, it's like running a race where if someone is behind like significantly, then the person that's ahead is going to slowly come back and they're going to kind of like detract, versus if someone is too far ahead and you feel like you're never going to be able to reach them. And so you need someone who's at that same level to where even if one slightly comes back, the other can pull them forward, and then it's vice versa. You want someone who you know that is at that same, I guess you'd say, season of life with their relationship with, I guess you could say, with God, or with spiritually, mentally, and physically, to be able to have that support for each other. Because I think that's a level of support as well, is making sure that you guys are both at that same I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right word to say, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Definitely. When you mention seasons, another way to you can put it is where one person, well, you're wearing winter clothes because I'm assuming it's still cold over there, though your boyfriend, he's in shorts and a shirt and a t-shirt because he's still in summer. There's that off balance. You guys both need to be in the same season.
I love that analogy with the clothing. That is so true. Wow. I think we need to like write that down somewhere, and that you need to like keep that, because wow, that was good. That was so good. That is, because also that's a different perspective. You know, if someone is in summer and you're in winter, you guys are going to have different desires or different hobbies. Like if someone's in summer, they're going to want to go to the lake and they're going to want to go to the ocean. They're going to want to go swimming. Kind of be out in the sun, versus someone in the wintertime wouldn't want to get in the water. So do you want to get in the water, or do you want to stay out of the water? I think that's also like, you could take that analogy so far, and I love it.
Water baptism, that just popped in my head. Looking at the time, we should probably wrap it up, since this will be posted around Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all of y'all, beautiful individuals. And with that being said, any final words that you have, Claire?
Essentially, regardless, of whether someone is in a relationship or not in a relationship, there is both commitment and love. There's beauty in love and there's beauty in commitment. And we will never be perfect. I think everyone wants to try to strive for perfection, but we're always going to fall in certain ways, which is where that love and commitment comes in, because someone will commit to say, even when you fall, I'm going to help pick you back up regardless of how hard it gets. And it's because I love you that I'm going to do that. And so I just encourage, even in a relationship and outside of a relationship, just to support and love other people, because a lot of people who, I would say, that are single or even in a relationship sometimes can feel lonely and really want that helping hand. And so I appreciate you having me here to talk about this. I love and relationships because it's so complicated, but it's definitely been a pleasure being here.
Definitely. Thank you for being on and spreading what you have. It's really fun. You're probably, I believe, the first woman to actually do one-on-ones. Most of you guys have been on for a while. We had a couple other individuals, and we're continuing to evolve. We are continuing to just, improve, smiling, get a different perspective. So thank you guys for watching and supporting. If you like the video, why not like it? Share it. If you have an opinion, drop it down below. Keep safe, pass a smile, and we'll see you guys next time. See you guys.